Ja, nu ska vi prata om den här romanen, skriven av författaren Sofi Oksanen. Det här är en bok som handlar om den smutsiga industrin med surrogatmödrar och med människor från länder som Finland och Sverige åker på babyshopping till fattigare länder. Jag träffade författaren här igår. Welcome to my show, Sofi Oksanen. And as usual, it's a very interesting topic and novel that you've been writing. This time it's about surrogate industry, and it's about surrogate mothers. But the name of the novel is Dog Park. Maybe you should explain that.
The dog park, the title refers to a central location setting in the novel. It's a dog park in Helsinki where two women meet. It looks like it might be a random encounter, but it's not. They have a mutual history, a mutual haunting history. And the reason why I wanted to have the dog park as a symbolic setting in the novel is connected to the dogs. Well, breeding of the dogs, which has a connection to the theme itself, but also dog as a symbol of loyalty. But also because there are dog park here up north, but not in Ukraine. Dog parks in Finland seem like to these women something reflecting the welfare society of the north, where people are actually taking care of the dogs, their pets, in a way that they are even giving them well-maintained parks. And I think, the way people treat pets and animals and what are the animal rights, it has a connection to what kind of society it is and what are the values of the society.
But if we go back to the scene where the two women sitting on the bench watching the dog park, outside the dog park, and then they see a couple with dogs and two children comes and enter the dog park. And there is something that makes them very interested in the children.
They are. I don't want to give too many spoilers,
okay.
But the children who are brought up in Finland, they have a connection to these ladies.
Okay, but it's about Olenka is one of the. It's a narrator, and it's one important person in your novel. It's an ex-model who tried her luck in the West by doing this new form of colonialism. Baby shopping.
Yes.
Why did she turn into that? Because she, of course, of money, but why?
There are little options available, and the average salary in Ukraine is a very low one. It's actually, when it comes to the income and monthly salary, it's the poorest country in Europe. And that makes it very futile, or it gives crooked businessmen excellent opportunities to exploit women and children as well. But we can say that Ukraine is a country where fertility treatments have become a huge business, and there are plenty of white women who are able to be donors, egg donors, and surrogate mothers. And when we think about all the countries in the world, then the number of countries where you can buy actually cheap eggs by white women is very limited. So in that way, it makes sense that Ukraine has become the destination for baby tourists.
Why did you choose that? Because you have been writing before about the the body of women in different ways. But this one, it's a very special way, as an egg donator.
Yes. Years back, when I was researching, doing a research for my previous novel, I came across this interesting detail about Ukrainian family code. It's unusually liberal family code, and it started to bother me because when we think about Ukraine as a country, well, there's a strong church, for example, and usually the church has a word about women's bodies. So I was surprised about the liberality of the law, and years later, I wanted to focus on it more. I wanted to focus on the donors and or the consequences. And I also understood that the fertility business as such offers a very good lens to talk about, which through I can talk about corruption. Corruption affecting all levels of life, everyday life of ordinary people. And simply in Ukraine, because the income is so low, so one cannot survive only with your monthly salary. I mean, the country isn't that cheap. So people need to find other kind of ways to make the means end.
But there are also a very special situation now with Corona. What had happened with these women in these? I mean, they're expecting babies, and there are couples in other countries that are expecting to go and get their babies. So what happened?
Yes, when the pandemic started, they certainly had rows of newborn infants waiting for the intended parents, and they just couldn't go to get their babies. And this kind of situation reveals the problems of the surrogacy as well, because there was like no one taking care of the babies, and certainly the surrogate mothers had to take care of the babies, even though they wanted to go to their own families. And so it was very tricky, but the parents found ways to get in the country in the end. So if they are not able to fly, then they try to drive there. So fly to another destination and drive to get the baby. But this does show how sensitive the business is to all kind of, things happening in the society.
Because it was very important that there would not be any connections and emotions between the mother and the baby.
Exactly. This is important to surrogate mothers. They carry the child with the idea that it's not their baby, and the idea is that usually the baby is taken immediately after the labor away from the surrogate mother, because she doesn't want to have the emotional ties to the child, which is understandable, of course. But if they have to take care of the babies, of course, there will be emotional ties. And of course, there are also plenty of cases where the intended parents don't want to have the baby after the baby is born. For example, there might be handicapped, there might be something, health problems with the baby, or the intended parents might get a divorce, and certainly they don't want to have the baby. And then what happens to that baby? The surrogate mother, who is already living on a very low income, might not couldn't afford to have another child. And then the children might be, dispatched to orphanages and so on. So there are plenty of tricky situations involved.
It's a really interesting subject that you pick up in this novel. But how have your own situation been during the last year?
Well, I'm afraid all people working in the culture field are pretty desperate, of course. For an author, I can, of course, write. And writing is a solitude, is something that we do in solitude. But then again, I also write for theatre, and there have been plenty of my plays have been postponed. And then I also was supposed to have an opera premiere in France last year, and now we are just, keeping our fingers crossed that it might take place this summer. But we'll see.
But meanwhile, you've been a cooking star, I've heard.
Yes,
Quite surprising, I think, for many people.
Well, I don't know. I've been cooking and talking about books on my Instagram, streaming on my Instagram, and I wanted to do something, to compensate all the cancelled events. I cannot meet the readers in real life, and then I also thought that now anyway all people are cooking at home, so I might offer some refreshing tips while I talk about the books. But also, I think this felt very natural to me also because in Soviet Union, kitchen was the best place to talk about politics. You couldn't meet people in public places. You couldn't talk about politics at work. So the best place for the conversation was actually kitchen.
Nice. I would try to make one of your recipes, and of course, I would recommend my viewers to read your book. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ja, läs den. Ett omdebatterat ämne. Hundparken heter den alltså.